Jonathan Copsey to lead us in the pledge. If we'd all stand and face the flag, and if Jonathan would come forward and lead us in the pledge.
You're supposed to call them for the pledge.
Who?
You're supposed to call Gene Adams.
Oh, Gene Adams. Is Gene Adams here? Gene, I'm sorry. It's the Kiwanis. I missed my notes. Jonathan, you next time. And
Okay,
Gene is the president of Kiwanis.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gene, before you leave, I'd like to read a proclamation on behalf of my Kiwanis Club,
Thank you.
of which I've been a member of for 37 years. It's the Kiwanis International Centennial Anniversary. And in recognition of that, we're going to have a proclamation. Whereas Kiwanis International is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to changing the world one child at a time and one community at a time, with the belief that children are our future, and when you give the child a chance to learn, experience, dream, grow, thrive, and succeed, great things will happen. The first Kiwanis Club started its service in Detroit, Michigan in 1915. And Kiwanis International celebrates its centennial anniversary of the founding of Detroit Kiwanis Club #1. And whereas Kiwanis International is one of the largest service organizations in the world, with more than 600,000 members of all ages and abilities in more than 80 nations. And whereas the members of Kiwanis Club of Historic Roswell are devoted to improving the lives of families in one community by seeking primacy to the human spirit and spiritual, rather than the material values of life, and providing service that will continue to have a positive effect on our community and citizens. And whereas, in addition, Kiwanis Club members promote the development of community leaders, positive role models, intercultural understanding and cooperation, and opportunities for fellowship, personal growth, professional development, and community service. Now therefore I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, January 21st, 2015 as Kiwanis International Day, celebrating the 100th anniversary of Kiwanis International, and call upon all of our citizens to join in the celebration. Let's have a hand for Kiwanis, and particularly Sweat Mountain Kiwanis. No, Roswell Kiwanis. It used to be Sweat Mountain Kiwanis when I joined up. Roswell Kiwanis. Gene, you want to recognize the other Kiwanis members who were here tonight?
Yes, we have Ron Jackson, Judy Brown, and Cheryl Henderland, and I think that's all that's with us tonight.
And what are y'all working? What are your big projects right now?
We are working on right now, our international president will be coming in the 19th of February. We are going to build a playground close to Mableton because it's needed in that area. We've raised $100,000 to put a playground in there for Kiwanis and for the needed kids out that way. And of course we work with North Fulton Charities, we work with the Child Development Center and Roswell Nursing Home. We adopt a road. We work with Keep Roswell Beautiful. We have and we mentor at Crabapple Middle School. We have 3 key clubs: Milton, Roswell High, and Centennial. It came to me. And so we have 2 Builders Club: Crabapple Middle School and also Elkins Point.
And when and where does the Roswell Kiwanis Club, and who is invited?
I beg your pardon?
Who is invited to come?
I'm sorry, I still couldn't.
When and where do you have meetings, and who is invited to come to those meetings?
Everyone is welcome to come to the Kiwanis Club. We're at the Red Lobster. We meet every Thursday at 12 o'clock noon, so we would love to have you anytime. You're quite welcome.
One more hand for the Kiwanis Club. Thanks for coming, Gene.
Thank you.
Councilmember Price.
Point of personal privilege?
Yes.
Yes, I would just like to announce, and I think it falls best under your report because it relates to the Mayor's Day activity this weekend that I know that you and some council members participated in. And at that event, I was very happy to happen to be in the room at the time that the City of Roswell received first place from Active Georgia, and I think we can be very proud of that. And
Hold it up.
here it is.
Let's have a hand for Active Georgia GMA recognition.
So I will pass this along to the mayor for safekeeping.
Thank you. And I think you also received a diploma. So brag about your diploma.
Well, I will brag about my diploma, yes. I just happen to have it. I did receive the Harold Holtz Municipal Training Institute for Elected Officials Certificate of Achievement for a number of training sessions that I've participated in over the last several years. So I will hang this on my wall, and I appreciate the opportunity to
She's a
obtain
trained
that.
professional. Be careful with her. Good job. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilman Orleans. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Eichelhardt. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes. Anybody in the audience have any questions regarding the consent agenda? Everybody in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Councilmember Wynn and Councilmember Diamond are absent with an excuse tonight. This time we'll turn to Councilman Kent Eichelhardt, liaison to the Fund Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we will have our first fund presentation, the always exciting presentation of the fiscal year 2014 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR, which Mr. Lee is going to do for us. We are the finance department, not the IT department.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I'm going to present tonight is going to be the 2014 CAFR. I think you all should have received a copy of it with your packets on Friday. I'd like to start by thanking the city's auditors, Malden and Jenkins. With us tonight is Adam Fraley. He's the CPA in charge of our account. He and his staff have done a commendable job and do a lot to keep us on track with doing the right thing. Second group of people I would like to give special thanks to would be Wendy Johnson and the accounting staff for the city. Wendy's with us. She's in the back beside Adam. Additionally, the budget staff as well as the grant staff, they do a great job in keeping us within the lines of what the laws of GAAP and GASB and everyone else tells us to do. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the book you have and some highlights, if you will. So just as an overview of what's within the book is the introductory section is just the initial pages. It's just the story of Roswell, if you will. Then you have the bulk of it is the financial sections, which is pages 1 through 79. There's a statistical section that gives you some vital information about our debt or digest, and then finally the single audit, which is the expenditures of federal funds. Then we'll go through the introductory section. There's the letter of transmittal is initially what you'll read, and it talks about our population, the number of acres per citizen. our reserve for 3 months, our AAA bond rating, the pro forma that we do from a financial planning perspective, and that we are a gold certified green community as well as an excellence in reporting and budgeting. Some highlights from the financial section. First and foremost, our auditors have issued opinion that our financials have been presented fairly in all material respects. From our balance sheet, this will give you just a high-level view of our general fund, capital projects funds, and our other major funds. You'll see that our general fund has a fund balance of $23 million. Our impact fee has $4.5 million. Other funds have $20 million. We have a total of our major funds of $67 million in fund balance. At the bottom of that, you'll see how we classify some of that fund balance, and that is on page 17 of your CAFR. You'll see our statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is page 18. You'll see that our fund balance revenues over FY13 was up 7.3%, or $4.2 million. Most of that's contributed to sales tax and the title ad valorem tax. We had expenditures were up about $6.4 million. The majority of that was in public safety. You'll see that we had a variance in our, you'll see that our change in fund balance for our general fund was $1.7 million. Impact fees, we added $650,000. Capital projects, we spent $2.1 million of our fund balance. And other funds, we added $5.4 million to our fund balances. For our general fund, I'm not sure you can see that, but the dark highlighted section on the back is taxes. That would be business taxes, franchise taxes, property taxes. That's 52% of our revenue. And the red is sales tax. That represents 37% of our revenue. From our general fund expenditures, this is, again, it's kind of hard to read, but the red section in the front is public safety. 41% of our expenditures are public safety. An additional 15% is general government. This is on page 20 of your CAFR. This just gives you the comparison of our revised budget to our actual budget for the general fund. So in the general fund, we had anticipated spending $4.3 million of our fund balance. We actually added 1.06 before we take into account gap mechanism, so we added $5.4 million to our fund balance in the general fund. This is primarily, again, due to sales tax, the TAVT and building permits. We had some savings and vacancies is one of the main reasons our revenues did not meet expectations. These are just our business type revenues, or our enterprise funds, if you will. Sanitations, we collected $8.3 million in revenues, or about 41% of all of our business type activities. Stormwater was $3 million, a little over $3 million. Recreation and other fees were $4.7 million. Our long-term debt, the city had, at the beginning of FY14, we had $18.061 million in long-term debt. We added some debt in FY14. That was the second series of our GO debt for $4.6 million. Our ending debt was $22.7 million. And in FY15, we will spend down $6.9 million in debt. That's on page 46 of the CAFR. In our statistical section, which is the next to last section, this is just some of the highlights. We have 3.01% of our legal debt limit. Our largest employers are Kimberly-Clark, Verizon Wireless, North Fulton Regional Hospital. We have 26,252 sanitation customers and 201 miles of water main. Those are just some of the highlights from that section. The last section in the last couple of pages will identify our findings that we had. There were a couple. one that's related to recognition of revenues, and the second that is related to our budgetary controls for our grants funds. And we have worked out plans to resolve both of those. That concludes my presentation of the CAPRA.
Does the council have any questions? Thank you for that presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Price.
Now, I'm not an expert on audits. However, when I look at comments such as on page 102, 110, 111, and 114, there seem to be some indications of areas for improvement. What is our response to that?
Yes, ma'am, you are right, and I'll start specifically on section 10111, which has to do with recognition of budgets. Whenever we have grants, and this is primarily in our grants funds, they are typically long-term projects. On an annual basis, we aren't re-inputting those revenue sides of our grants, so we will make some modifications to that piece. Additionally, as we come through for grant approvals, we need to add the revenue approval as well as the expense approval in the process, and that would rectify this particular issue. On our revenue recognition for our internal controls, that it's a matter of us monitoring these revenues on a closer basis. We did have some vacancies this past year. That doesn't amount for the reason. It's just clerical activities that we need to add to our everyday job functions. And it's the culmination of that brings us to the magnitude for the finding.
Yeah, I just don't know whether I should be concerned or not with a $1.2 million, what they're calling total misstatement, and I'm sure this is just audit speak, but it just doesn't sound right to me.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that. I think that it has mostly, if you were to read each one individually, it identifies where our issues or deficiencies were. We can walk through those. So we had where we misclassified some revenue related to our business license, $104,000. There's a 60-day rule. We recognized it in the wrong fiscal year. An adjustment for state grants, again, it was the 60-day rule for when the revenue was coming in and when we recognized it. Same thing with the federal funds. We have an agreement with Sandy Springs for the ATMS project. It was a multi-year project. They billed us. They paid GDOT. GDOT paid them. And then they reimbursed us when GDOT paid them for the activity. The money flowed. We just happened not to put it on as a receivable in our books.
Is it fair to say that these weren't mistakes in the sense of mathematical mistakes or failure to report? It were technical violations of how we reported what we reported, and we didn't report it in the technically correct basis, so now we're technically correct when we make these adjustments.
Yes, sir. When the auditors made the adjustments, we were technically correct.
Folks, this is a very technical world, and there are lots of rules, and one of the things the auditor helps us do is to make sure that we meet all those technical requirements, and we thank the auditor for helping us get it right. And I can tell you that as mayor, we've relied upon the auditor for a long time. I'm not sure we've ever been perfect, but it's like trying to be perfect on your SATs. Only a few people can do that, and although y'all are very good, only our water department is perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, what is the next step then? Like, in order to be in compliance with any state laws, we make these adjustments? Is that the process?
Yes, ma'am, we will make the adjustments. We've sent in our corrective action to the state auditor. We will make those changes. Next year, we will have an audit, and there will be more findings next year, and we'll make adjustments for those. It's like a continuous improvement program.
Well, the rules change, I presume.
They do. We've had a few rules to hit us in the past couple of years, and we enjoy when they come down our way, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. There's no actual vote. That's just a presentation of the overall financial report, which anyone's welcome to thumb through the entire thing if they'd like. The next item is the approval of the FY 2015 mid-year budget amendment, and this has a number of items that go across a number of funds, and I'd like to ask Mr. Lee to go through those for us, please.
Yes, sir, that is correct. I'm going to ask Kevin Klosterbauer to come up and present the mid-year budget adjustment for us.
Good news is we don't make the same mistake every year. It's always a new mistake.
It's actually not that bad.
All right, thank you, Keith. I'll walk us through the presentation for the FY15 mid-year budget adjustment. Kind of just a brief overview. First I'll talk about the general fund operating expenditures, then I'll go through the general fund one-time capital items, and then I'll touch on some other funds. In general fund operating expenditures, we have two proposals, only one of which has a budgetary impact. The first proposal is to appropriate additional $100,000 from general fund operating contingency for legal services. Basically, this operating account needs more funds because of the legal costs associated with the T-Mobile case. Staff has estimated $100,000 will be enough to make that account good through the rest of the year. The second proposal, again, there's no budgetary impact, but staff's recommending to reclassify one position in the police department from a crime analyst to a criminal intelligence analyst. Again, no budgetary impact. The kind of additional salary money will come out of the salary savings existing in the department. So to summarize general fund operating expenditures, there's a total expenditure increase of $100,000 to come from general fund operating contingency. Moving into general fund one-time capital, there's a few proposals here. The first is for appropriating an additional $50,000 for a skid steer replacement. This is to replace a 1996 skid loader that blew an engine. Second proposal is for some additional funding for fire apparatus replacement to kind of increase it by $50,000. Basically, the fire department is recommending to change the specs of the vehicles that we're purchasing to get a vehicle that will really better suited to the department's needs. This is an increase of $50,000 in expenditures. However, this purchase is in the existing FY15 budget to come from capital lease a capital lease funding strategy. So it'll be offset by $50,000 additional in kind of a capital lease to purchase the truck. And staff is going to work it out so that the kind of net effect of the operating budget will be the same. We'll just restructure the lease a little differently so we can stay within the budgeted amount. There's a proposal to replace 3 total police patrol vehicles. $150,000 additional appropriation. This is a proposed transfer from the risk management fund balance. The risk management fund kind of exists for situations like this when vehicles are totaled. Again, $150,000 is proposed to be transferred from the risk management fund. $40,000 proposal for geotechnical design for the Myrtle Street extension. This is part of the Veranda at Groveway project. This is proposed to be transferred from the Mimosa Boulevard parking project. So it's transferring some budget from one existing capital project and setting aside for geotechnical design for the Myrtle Street extension. The next proposal is to replace a street sweeper that caught fire. This $180,000 will also be transferred from the risk management fund balance. It is not in here, but staff has already received an insurance reimbursement check, so that'll kind of hit the risk management fund balance on the backside after we make the amendment of the $180,000 to replace it. To summarize the general fund one-time capital, there's a total of $470,000 in expenditure increase and $420,000 in offsetting revenues. Again, those offsetting revenues are those transfers from the risk management fund and the $50,000 in kind of capital lease proceeds that we'll use to purchase a fire truck for a net expense of $50,000. Moving into the other funds, the water sewer fund, there's a proposal to kind of set in place a personnel transition plan due to some upcoming retirements to the amount $46,195. The stormwater fund is a proposal to replace a dump truck. This was a 2008 Ford F-450 dump truck. It's been broken down since June. This is just to replace it and get it back on the road doing stormwater improvements. For the hotel motel funds, there's a proposal for $35,000 additional funding for Roswell Inc. for economic development. And finally is a proposal out of the impact fees fund, $68,625 for architect fees. Council has recently passed a budget amendment for this project. This is just kind of to, when we passed that, staff forgot to add on the architect's fees is contractually set. So this is kind of just a budget amendment for the architect fees portion of that. That's just a real brief summary of all the proposed amendments. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. On the street sweeper item, you mentioned that we get some insurance proceeds. How much are we getting from the insurance company for that?
It was, I don't know the exact figure, it was very close to the full cost. It was definitely above $170,000. So when staff presented this budget amendment, we weren't sure if it would hit, if we would get reimbursed anything. So it actually worked out a lot better for the city than we first thought. That's kind of why we had the $180,000 recommended amendment, just kind of to replace it, get it back going. So now, again, now the insurance reimbursement, we've already received it. So that'll just kind of go towards the risk management fund balance that we're proposing to make the amendment from.
Was that a relatively new sweeper, do you know?
The sweeper was relatively new, that caught fire, yes,
so
sir.
that's why we're getting pretty much replacement costs for it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the mid-year budget amendment. And do you need me to go through the individual items?
No, that's good enough.
For the things that he has gone through and shown what those are per fund, move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Eichelhart to approve the recommended mid-year budget. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orlins. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
The final item is the approval of an amendment of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances, Article 2.7, regarding purchasing, specifically about our bid process. And Mr. Lee?
Thank you, sir. This is the second reading of the purchasing ordinance changes. I think it was deferred from our last regular mayor and council meeting, just to go over what's in the proposed changes. It really has to do with thresholds, advertisement requirements, evaluations of proposals, professional services. So we're proposing the thresholds for formal procurement for non-professional items, professional services items, move from $25,000 to $75,000.
Administrator can approve it at up to $75,000 for professional services.
Well, actually, professional services are at $25,000, but non-professional services.
Okay, so she can approve professional services up to $25,000 contract, and a non-professional service, a acquisition or a maintenance or capital improvement, she can approve that up to $75,000.
Correct, yes, sir.
Provided there's money in the budget to approve it from.
Provided that you have provided us a budget, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So long as there's an allocation of funds, then she would have the authority to approve.
Does the council have any questions? Mr. Davidson, would you read the ordinance?
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 2 Administration, Article 2.7, Purchasing of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell. Now therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following amendment. Chapter 2, Article 2.7, Purchasing of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Georgia, is hereby amended by deleting section Article 2.7 in its entirety and substituting therefore a new Article 2.7, Purchasing, attached to and incorporated herein, and if approved, this will be the second reading.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve, but I also have a couple questions.
Let's see if we get a second. Motion by Councilman Eichelhardt to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Orlins. And we'll have questions from council now.
Actually, more clarification, just for the record, that even though we're changing that number to $75,000, it doesn't mean there'll be no bid process. There is still three numbers that we have to see, and we'll be quotes comparing things, not just, $75,000, sure, go ahead and approve it.
Correct, yes, sir. Anything over $25,000 will still require 3 written quotes.
So it's
as
still,
a minimum.
it's a less formal process, but it has the same end result, I think.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Because honestly, and just to make clear, it's not regarding the person of the city administrator, but myself was somewhat uncomfortable to go that high. But when you're essentially doing what we do already and looking through what has been approved in the last year, there are things that make sense. So for anyone concerned that $75,000 is high, it's true, but it's things that we would still continue to get quotes and make the best decision based on that.
Yes, sir,
Makes
that's correct.
the function better and flow better than what we go through now. So with that, that's the key question, and to clarify that point.
Is any other questions? Any further discussion before we vote? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilman Orlins, Councilman Eichelhardt, and Councilman Dippolito in favor. All opposed. Councilman Price opposed. Passes 3-1.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, council.
This time we'll call upon Councilmember Rich Dippolito, liaison to the Environmental Public Works Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item is approval for the mayor and city administrator to sign a contract amendment with Goodwill of North Georgia, Inc. to exercise a renewal option for the clothes and the hard goods drop-off services contract at the recycling center. And that'll be presented by our new Director of Public Works, Mr. Dan Skowski. Welcome.
Good. Thank you. Good evening. It's great to be here. This is a renewal of the contract that we currently have with Goodwill of North America, Inc. We have some representatives here as well from Goodwill of North America. There were a number of questions about the contract. I believe staff has been able to respond to those, and if not, I'll clarify any questions if any of those remain. The contract has a 1 year plus 2 potential renewals, so this would be a renewal for the 2nd year of the contract. Are there any particular questions from members?
Financially, what was our revenues raised with this last year?
The annual, we don't have total. We've got a total thus far of $54,280 in revenue, and that's through the close of November of last year.
It started in March.
Correct.
So it's not a full calendar
Yes.
year or even close.
Mm-hmm.
Does the council have any other questions? Councilmember Price.
In comparing the potential of the American Kidney Services compared to Goodwill as far as their offer or bid last year, and I'm trying to follow the memorandum that indicates a rejection rate. So was that rejection rate considered to be the same for both entities or not?
Yes, we estimated a rejection rate based on information obtained from Keefe, North Fulton Beautiful, and applied that rejection rate to the city of Roswell's tonnage. So that's how we worked through an estimate of what the comparable numbers would be for our revenue stream in the contract terms.
So that rejection rate was applied to both entities?
Correct.
Okay.
Just to
Kay Love
clar-
would like to clarify something.
Yeah, and I was going
Dan, I
to...
want to clarify, and perhaps I misunderstood, but I don't think that Goodwill has a rejection rate because they accept everything.
That's...
So it wasn't applied to Goodwill's, it was taking what our knowledge is from the Sandy Springs contract, which is our point of reference, and applied it to Roswell.
That's correct. A good clarification, Goodwill does not reject any of the material that we provide to them, or that's brought in.
But do we have an official communique from Sandy Springs, or was that just hearsay?
No, this is an official communications with Keep North Fulton Beautiful and their contract manager.
Okay, I mean, I'm just wondering if American Kidney Services would agree with that in Roswell, they would have a 5% rejection rate. Is anybody here from their entity?
I'm not certain that there is. Anyone here from American Kidney Services?
We will have an
It's-
opportunity for public comment before we take a vote.
Okay, so that's that 5% were not applied to AKS, what would the difference of revenue been?
That 5% is a fairly significant amount of revenue that is offset by disposal costs. It's approximately $80,000 and $712 potential gross revenue, with a portion of that reject stream taken into account. I think the maximum potential revenue would be just slightly higher than that, and there's a significant cost in disposal of rejected material. That's really where the highest cost impact has hit Keep North Fulton Beautiful.
But we don't know that would have occurred in Roswell.
No.
No, so we can't really use that information. I mean, I think we have to take it straight, what they've offered us per pound, and compare the two. What would the difference be?
Approximately $24,000 higher. $80,712 is pretty close to that number in terms of the maximum revenue. And that would be a difference of about $24,000 over the current revenue received.
Okay, in the bid that American Kidney Service gave to us, did they indicate in that they were going to reject or have to dispose of other materials at our expense?
I'm afraid I can't answer that question at this particular point in time. I'm not sure that...
Ms. Love said she might think she can answer the question.
Councilmember Price, no ma'am, they did not indicate any level of rejection rate, or that was not a question that was asked during the RFP process. I would say that at the point when the city goes back out for an RFP, whatever time that's decided, that would be one of the questions that we would put in our RFP.
Ms. Love, just to address that, I understand this is a 2-year contract. It was a 1-year contract with 1-year rights and
It
renew.
was 1-year contract with the option to renew for 2
years,
additional 1-year terms. So this is a 1-year term.
This would put it into its 2nd year.
Correct.
And if we renew it, it could go to 3 years on the same terms.
Correct. Maximum.
So we're anticipating in 2 years, this is going to be opened back up at a minimum.
Correct.
The council could open it up sooner if they wanted to.
Correct.
Other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve the contract with Goodwill by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orlins. Is anyone in the audience wish to comment or have any questions? Any further discussion by council? Yes, Councilmember Price.
Just I want to point out that in the original bid, we gave a large value to the fact that there were bricks and mortar of Goodwill in Roswell, which apparently they do not have bricks and mortar in Roswell anymore. So when we asked to review this year for a comparison between the two, I feel like that has not been taken into account, and if it were, I would think that we would have gone in the other direction, and although, we have a little more information compared to the committee, I'm not sure that it's a fair comparison because we didn't ask the American Kidney Services if there was going to be a rejection and/or disposal cost to us. Therefore, if we're looking at a difference in $23,600, I think we're overlooking an opportunity, all the things being equal, for some cost savings to the city. So I will not be in favor of renewing this. Thank you.
Just for the record, and this is not to challenge your comments, but both entities now have a bricks and mortar location in Roswell. I think you were, before the American Kidney Foundation did not have a facility in Roswell. Now they do. Goodwill closed one, but they have other ones. So I think at this point they both are Roswell locations.
We have a close one at the current time. The one that we have is under lease until...
Come forward and identify yourself for the record. I was just, and I do appreciate the record being cleared. I just didn't...
Yes, sir.
We're not perfect up here, and sometimes we get our facts wrong.
My name is Brian Easton. I work with Goodwill of North Georgia. We're currently under lease in Roswell, and we'll be under lease through 2016. We're currently looking for another location. We're just looking for it in advance. Similar to, you guys are familiar with Sandy Springs, and right next to the Target, we were there. We just moved right up the road about half a mile. So we're committed to being a partner in the community, and we're just looking for another location within the area.
Thank you for the clarification. Any further discussion by council? Councilman Orlins.
I will say, a lot of places, I should say some places are very picky on what they're going to take to recycle. And I will say that Goodwill has been very lenient on taking items. I just took 4 old printers to them this last weekend, and they were able to take those printers, which is, nobody wanted them. So I think they are very flexible in what they take for products. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That is Councilman Orlins, Eaglehart, and DiPolito in favor. All opposed. Councilmember Price passes 3-1.
The next item is approval of a fee for non-resident computer monitor recycling effective February 1st of 2015. Mr. Skowski.
Thank you. This is a related item in a certain extent having to do with our recycling center. We were advised that the current contractor, Atlanta Recycling Solutions, will begin charging for monitors disposed of at our facility. We've estimated the approximate flow that we've seen in terms of those monitors and estimate the expense at about $4,800 per year based on that approximate flow rate. We do not have records of internal to the city residents versus outside the city residents in terms of who's dropping them off, but that would be the net effect in terms of cost. And the recommendation here is to implement a monitor disposal fee that would be applied to non-residents of $20 per monitor to offset that cost, with the approximation that 25% of the monitors coming in are coming from non-resident sources. Any questions about this item?
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Just for clarification, there will still be no charge to residents of Roswell, is that correct?
That is the recommendation from staff, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito to approve the monitor recycling fee. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Orlins. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll call upon Kay Love to call the Community Development Agenda for absent member Council Member Becky Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is the final plat, Burkdale at Crabapple Phase 2. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Ms. Love. This is acceptance of the final plat for Burkdale at Crabapple Phase 2, which is located generally at Howes and Rucker Roads. We had Phase 1 final platted maybe 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, something like that, and this is Phase 2 of that development, an additional 28 lots. All requirements for final plat have been met, and Community Development is recommending acceptance of the final plat.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. When we approved Phase 1, we had some conditions, but I believe those all pertain to them platting Phase 2. Is that correct?
Right. The condition was, I believe they could not have any more than 4 certificates of occupation prior to the platting of Phase 2.
Okay, and that was the only condition. I remember having a lengthy discussion, but I guess it came down to that.
That's the one I recall. The applicant's here. I don't know if he recalls.
If you'll come forward, please, identify yourself for the record.
My name is Jonathan Presley with the Pulte Group. I think the main issue was having the second road paved going out to Howes Road, and we've had that paved and it's functional now. So it was the road being paved and the 4 COs.
Another question for you. On the plat, it indicates on the north side of Applegate Drive, there was a pond on the Talaferro property, and I guess that has been drained as part of this development. Is that correct? I'm just curious because I know there was concern about that pond holding water and how that was draining down through your property down into Crabapple Woods. And so how does that work now?
Yes, sir. Well, we went through and there was an existing pipe and structure that went under the road, and we improved that pipe. We set a new head wall and put in a new pipe.
Okay, so there is a new pipe that goes under there and a new head wall.
Yes, sir.
Right, so it's really no longer a detention pond. I guess it's just kind of gathering water.
Just a low area.
A low area?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then lastly, with respect to the amenity area, I guess there's a small park there.
It's an open space that houses the mail kiosk.
Okay.
And there's I think like 8 or 9 parking spaces in a small area that's landscaped. And
so it's just going to be a grassed area for the most part? Okay. Thank you.
Do we have a motion? Question, you have a question, yes.
I don't know if you've got a depiction of it there, but I'm just curious, where's the distinction between Phase 1 and Phase 2, and how many lots are in Phase 2?
Phase 2, 28 lots. On the plat, it should show, I think, at lots 19 and 34.
That's right. There's the dividing line between 1 and 2.
So Phase 2 is everything below?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, thank you. So Phase 1 has been built?
Phase 1 has been final platted, and we are under construction now with houses. Phase 2 is, once approval, we'll start building.
And is that road to Howes completely within your property, or is it
Yes,
an
ma'am.
easement?
It's completely within our property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the Burkdale Crabapple plat Phase 2.
Motion for approval by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orlins. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign a contract with JB+A for the City Green Master Plan and Design in an amount not to exceed $359,648. Ms. Wakefield.
Thank you. As was stated, this is a request to approve a contract with JB+A for the master plan for the City Green project. The city received 3 proposals, and those consultants were all invited to oral presentation. The proposals and oral presentations were evaluated based on demonstration of project understanding, approach, methodology, and relevant project experience. It was unanimous of the committee that JB+A was the most responsible bidder. Staff is asking that this matter be approved for tasks 1 through 3, with the understanding that for task 4, which is the actual construction plans, that we would have to come back before this body for approval.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
I understand that number 4 could change based on the things that happen in this process, but do we expect that the ultimate cost will still be within the budget, for what we know at this point?
I would venture to say that it probably will be over budget.
Okay.
It's probably going to change.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion? Councilmember Price.
Now, my understanding is that we've got is the design firm here playing?
Yes. Yes, they are.
Because I know we've got an advisory group to advise, I suppose, the plan of this, the details of which I'm not sure we ever decided upon, but we've decided at an earlier point to move forward with a design, but yet I see on here that one of the deliverables is design for the War Memorial relocation. So I'm just curious if that has been determined or not, that will occur.
No, ma'am, it has not been determined. That's all part of the process with the consultant and the advisory committee working with the community, working with, as I said, with the advisory committee, coming back before mayor and council through work sessions. At that time is when it will be refined.
Let's get our architects who waited all night to comment and tell us, I don't want to get the whole process, but I think council wants to know what can they expect to see in the first round before it comes back to this council for a check.
Okay, Mayor and Council, my name is John Fish. I'm with JB+A, and if we're awarded the contract, I'll be the project manager helping you walk through this process. So one of the first tasks that we've been asked to do is actually come back to you formally once selected and have a kind of a high-level kickoff meeting with you formally, talk through the process, talk through some of the issues, and lay out the schedule going forward. So the plan is to rely very heavily on the advisory committee. There's also a technical committee that the staff, I believe, has established, and then you all, obviously very important in this process.
I just want you to recognize the council has at least as much input as the advisory committee.
Yes, sir. That's very clear. So what we understand that there are some issues associated with the original concept plan, and so where we want to start is with you all in small group conversations about the existing plan, about the likes and dislikes and the things, the strengths and weaknesses, and kind of go back to a higher level and talk a little bit about the vision, why we're here, what we're hoping to accomplish. And really this first step is just described as a plan refinement. So the goal is to kind of refine the concept plan before moving forward with the actual development of the master plan itself. And that's going to happen through a series of small group work sessions with the advisory committee, with you all, in a sort of two-step process.
Does the council have any questions or comments? Councilmember Price.
At the conclusion of your design, is it ready for construction, or is there additional designs needed?
Additional design will be needed. The goal in this process is just to get us to a formal master plan that you all will accept, that the community has bought into, is excited about, and then the next step will be to take this into construction documents.
There are additional designs needed or not?
Task 4, which is the next step in
well, let me rephrase the question. For $359,000, if we don't change the scope of this project, Where will we be when we spent that last dollar?
You will have an adopted master plan document.
And the next step would then be to actually engineer drawings. That would be a different contract.
Correct. That's correct.
It was my understanding that this was engineering. This is
But
preliminary.
what I understand right now, and if staff doesn't disagree with me, regardless of what my understanding was, this is 359 for a master plan, concept plan, but all the decisions will have been made, but the exact measurements and the thickness of the concrete and those engineer drawings, any idea what that might, just trying to look ahead, what engineer drawing, a rule of thumb, what they might cost on a project like this size? Because you do have the number, what the engineer drawings might cost in addition to this. That might help council.
Mr. Fish, if I could refer you to the proposal in Task 4, Construction Plans, there is a dollar amount of $334,785. You might explain what that does or does not include.
Right. Before I do that, Ms. Love, if I could just back up a little bit. One of the RFP requirements is that as a part of this initial three-step process, three-phase process, that we will be doing some preliminary engineering work. So there are going to be some transportation plans developed. There are going to be some preliminary civil engineering plans developed. So there is some preliminary engineering component to this master planning work that we'll be doing. To part two of the question, in the RFP, what we were asked to do was provide you all with a fee to produce the construction documents based on the current conceptual master plan.
Correct.
So those fees associated with implementing the current plan are the $334,000 associated with Task 4.
So if we kept with the current concept and no major changes, the master plan would be 359, and then we'd anticipate another 3-something to do the final plans.
That's correct.
Does that answer Councilmember Price's question?
Well, unfortunately it does, yes. That suggests that it's going to be twice as much as we thought it was, because at the time, that was my question, was will we'd be ready to construct at the end of this phase? So we really won't be. There's another...
That's fair. That's a fair statement.
All right.
Other questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
I don't have a question as much as I have comments. I think that JB+A did a phenomenal job on the original master plan concept, and I'm delighted to see that they were selected as the consultant to run this. I know you have a lot of team members, so you have a lot of firepower behind you, which is great, but phenomenal job, and looking forward to this.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're excited about it as well.
Other questions before we entertain a motion? Do we have a motion? Yes, Councilmember DiPolito.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve the $359,000 master plan and design contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Orlins. Does anyone in the council have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That is unanimous. My biggest concern is the transportation connection, because that is the most debated and the least definite, and I believe that needs to be addressed on the front end. I know y'all have put that in there, but I want to see early on what the resolution of that is, and make sure that this council is behind whatever resolution, because it's not only has a big impact on the concept, it could have a significant impact on the cost.
That's right.
And so it's a big unknown, and we want to get those unknowns out of the way before we get too far into this project.
We understand that, Mayor, and I think we have a good team to help us work through some of those issues.
I'm sure you'll come up with a phenomenal, innovative, creative solution that makes everybody happy and costs a negligible amount.
We'll do our best, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we're to item number 9, City Attorney's Report. He's recommending closure. Do we have a motion for closure? Motion for closure by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. I know that was a motion. All in favor, raise their hands. They're all up here. We got a unanimous approval. We're adjourned. We're going to closure. It happens.
You're going under duress.